Thanks for tuning in to TFBTV. My name is James Reeves, and I'm pleased to bring you this mini documentary on one of my most favorite guns of all time, the M60 machine gun. I've had the good fortune to shoot the M60 on several different occasions over the years, but by far the best time I've had with this gun, and possibly the best time I've ever had on a range, is when myself, Houston of XRayGuns.com, and Stephen Canty of TFBTV spent a day shooting and talking about Houston's M60, soaking it all in, just dudes being dudes. Houston will give you guys the mechanical breakdown of this gun in this video, but let's just start with a brief history of the M60.
This is the machine gun 7.62mm M60. It is gas-operated, air-cooled, belt-fed, and weighs 23 pounds with its organic bipod.
The M60 machine gun began development in the 1940s for a 7.62mm machine gun. The German light and medium machine guns of World War II, like the FG-42 and the MG-42, influenced and perhaps inspired the design of this machine gun. Rather than simply copy or license a foreign design, Congress required preference to be given to American manufacturers, even if a superior design was available overseas. This not only awarded American innovation, but it also conveniently avoided paying foreign licensing fees. How American is that? The M60 was intended to replace the M1919 Browning machine gun that was outdated and serve as a squad automatic weapon and a medium machine gun. And boy, did it ever, trouncing the M1919 in almost every way during trials. Tests conducted in 1956 by the Continental Army Command indicated that the M60 beat the M1919 in simplicity, portability, reliability, barrel life, and simple fire delivery. The 1919 and the M60 were about equally as accurate up to 1,000 yards, while the M60 had noticeable accuracy advantages beyond that range. After testing, the M60 was recommended for adoption. The U.S. Army then officially adopted the M60 the next year in 1957. The M60 was intentionally designed for mass production, cheap and fast with stamped sheet metal receivers, and it enjoyed a long career serving its country. So today on TFB-TV, this close to the ultimately American holiday of Thanksgiving, we bring you the ultimately American machine gun, the M60. The M60 was instantly loved. It was generally easy to carry and designed to be fired from the shoulder if needed. The single or dual pistol grip setup was easy to use. Disassembly was relatively easy, and it was the first U.S. machine gun with a quick change barrel. The M60 saw significant action in Vietnam, where it was nicknamed the Pig. Although if you ask different people, you'll get different answers as to why that is. Some would say it's due to the sound it makes when it fires, while others might say it's because it likes to get dirty and chow down on ammo. But everyone also agrees that it's because this thing was a hog at 23 pounds.
American classic right there.
The Pig. Why do they call it the Pig, Nick?
Because it's fat, heavy, likes to get dirty.
Although most machine gunners who were issued the M60 seem to love it, if you look back at the research and the history of the M60, you'll see some conflicting claims relative to reliability, and that's because the M60's reliability and durability has somewhat of a complicated history. According to a 1985 report from the Army Research Institute entitled Training Effectiveness Analysis, the M60 machine gun and squad automatic weapon, the maintenance of the M60 was its weak point. Quote, maintenance of M60 machine guns has been problematic and should be improved. Operator serviceability checks must be conducted correctly, followed by removal of unserviceable weapons from the inventory. The operating rods and the bolt groups were the known Achilles heel of the M60. Some blamed the manufacturer rather than the design itself, and this may be a fair observation. It was reported that spare parts supplied in later decades by lowest bid subcontractors magnified issues with user abuse, poor maintenance, and extreme environmental conditions. Operating rods were made out of substandard metals and prone to breakage, and the bolt groups needed to be replaced in their entirety, or a so-called domino effect of breakages would occur. In other words, when it was time to replace one part of the bolt assembly, it was time to replace all of the parts in the bolt assembly because they all had a similar service life. I dug up a report from 1976 written by the Department of the Army and entitled Selection of a Machine Gun for Armored Vehicles. This report detailed extensive testing of the M60 versus the FN MAG, later known as the M240, for use on armored vehicles. This evaluation was a field test designed to simulate the operational environment in which the weapons would be utilized. Tests took place in Fort Carson, Colorado, and the Aberdeen Proving Grounds. 5 of each M240 and M60 off the rack were each subjected to a 50,000 round reliability test and then another 50,000 rounds for a durability test. That's 10 guns, 1,000 rounds each, or 1 million rounds fired. The primary statistical data the Army wanted were the mean rounds between stoppages, the MRBS, and the mean rounds between failures, or MRBF, based upon the first 50,000 rounds fired from each gun. All of the guns were new, but again, they weren't specially provided for the test, they were just taken off the shelf. A stoppage was defined as not only an unintentional cessation of firing, but also as a potential stoppage, such as a potential weapon failure found during non-firing activity. A failure was defined as a stoppage that would last for more than 1 minute. The M240 straight up kicked the M60's ass. The M240 was about 2.5 times as reliable as the M60 E2 for the first 50,000 rounds fired, and was more reliable during sand and dust tests and corrosion tests. See the chart here that shows that over 50,000 rounds fired, the M60 could not even fire 1,000 rounds without a stoppage, or 2,000 rounds without a failure, while the M240 could go 3,000 rounds between stoppages and 6,442 rounds between failures. Lo and behold, the bolt assembly and the operating rods were the weak points of the M60, although the M60 barrels were considered superior to the M240s and lasted longer during high rates of sustained fire. On paper, this seems like an open and shut case, but in reality, it was much less simple. Mehrmont, the manufacturer of the M60 at the time, appealed the findings of the test. They protested on the basis that the Army did not run the test with the M60's proper maintenance schedule of replacing the bolt assembly every 15 to 20,000 rounds. And even with the replacement bolt assembly cost factored in, an M60 would cost $922, including these parts, versus $1,517 for the M240. The Army pointed out that Mehrmont never made this recommendation on the record prior to testing, so it was not followed. Interestingly, the test results completely backed up Mehrmont's assertions. The M60 and the M240 were equally reliable until the 15,000 round mark, and at that point the M60's reliability worsened significantly. Had the bolt assemblies been changed as recommended, the M60 likely would have been just as reliable as the M240. To add another layer to this, the M240's rivets would start to pop between 30,000 and 50,000 rounds. A skilled armorer would need tools and a half hour per gun to repair the busted rivets. Worse still, while the M240 would make it through the 50,000 round reliability test, at 70,000 rounds, every single one of the M240 receivers cracked, and every single one of the M240s were each withdrawn from the extended reliability test for safety reasons. The M240 was still recommended over the M60 despite Mehrmont's well-founded protest. And it wasn't just the M240 coming after the M60's job. The M249 SAW, also made by Fabrique Nationale of Belgium, challenged the superiority of the old reliable American M60. And this is where the M60 got to flex a little-known characteristic that it enjoys, and that is decent accuracy for an open-bolt medium machine gun. Despite being old technology made from stamp metal, the M60 is actually surprisingly accurate. According to the 1985 Army report on M60 training effectiveness, when used by a skilled gunner, the M60 has proven accuracy to ranges in excess of 1 kilometer. Established pre-production mil-spec standards in 1964 required each M60 placed into service to put 9 rounds of a 10-round burst into a 3-inch hole at 25 meters. That's not bad for an open bolt light machine gun made out of sheet metal, and in fact, the M60 was more accurate than the M249 SAW in head-to-head testing. According to a chart generated from the results of the Army evaluation between the SAW and the M60 had a burst radius of 32 centimeters at 300 meters, 62 centimeters at 600 meters, and 102 centimeters at 800 meters. At 300 and 600 meters, the M249 was half as accurate as the M60. Check the numbers for yourself. And note that in a report released the same year entitled Training Program for the M249, the very last paragraph of the very last page of the report says, the weapon, that is the M249, is basically well designed. It is not, however, equal or superior to the M60 general purpose machine gun in terms of effective range or accuracy, and probably not equal to durability or sustained fire capability. And because I know we're all wondering it, probably out loud and probably in front of our wives and or immediate family, how accurate could Rambo really be shooting that M60 belt-fed open bolt machine gun from the hip? Well, in the funnest government test in the history of the United States and probably the world, the Army tested how accurate the gun was firing bursts from the shoulder, the hip, and Rambo-style underarm. Surprisingly, firing from the hip was by far the most stable by a margin of 15 to 30% over underarm or from the shoulder. Just check out table 14 right here for the results. In addition to low felt recoil, the rate of fire was perfect for a light or medium machine gun. Soldiers said the pig was easy to control, and it was also easy to give out the right dosage of rounds to the enemy. The low shot cadence of about 550 rounds per minute compared to about 1,000 plus rounds per minute for many light and medium machine guns of the day increased shooter accuracy, reduced ammunition consumption significantly, and minimized the risk of collateral damage. The Army determined that 6-round bursts were the magic number for the M60, providing the best combination of hit capability, hit probability, and percentage of actual hits obtained by the gunner. Larger bursts of 10 or more rounds did not provide corresponding increases in target coverage, and 3-round bursts were seen as relatively ineffective. Also contributing to the great accuracy is that the sights on the M60 were good and tough. The rear sight was easily adjustable for windage and elevation. But because this was the first U.S. machine gun with a true quick-change barrel system, the front sights were bolted to the barrel and non-adjustable. Thus, if a gunner wanted to have all of his spare barrels properly zeroed, he'd have to zero each barrel and record the settings for his rear sight, and then remember to make the zero adjustments in combat after he changed barrels. This was complicated by the fact that a zero shift from changing barrels could be as much as 4 clicks of windage and 15 whole clicks of elevation from barrel to barrel. So while the M60 was relatively accurate for a machine gun, point of impact and point of aim shift was a real consideration. So to wrap things up, Houston from X-Ray Guns will walk us through the basics of his M60.
So this is a M60, it's a transferable gun, and it's made by Metrotech, and unlike most Metrotechs, this pre-86 machine gun has an intact trunnion, Seiko trunnion on it. It's a air-cooled, belt-fed, open bolt machine gun. So top cover comes up, belt goes in. This is a raceway for this is the feed mechanism here. The charging handle is there. And this gun is full auto only, but at a very slow rate of fire. I would guess about 450 rounds a minute. You can pull singles and doubles on it, so no need for semi. Shoots from the open bolt position and has a swappable barrel, which would look like this when it's out, with a gas tube, like so. Actually, this needs to come back. There. There's the barrel with a integral bipod, gas tube. The registered part on this gun is this here. Some M60s are registered rails, receiver channels or whatnot. Other parts of the gun. The two loops first. That feeds right there. And then hold that. Shut it. And then take it off of safety. You're ready to go. You're ready to fire. On the last round, it's going to have a dummy round in it to keep the bolt from slamming home. So in the last round, or when it's empty, you're gonna pop it. You're gonna charge it back, and you're gonna put it back on safety. The feed, you don't have to snap it shut. You can just kind of do it shut, and then take that and
Make sure it's
like this.
okay.
There. All right, and now you're live.
Yep.
So if you put it on fire and drop it, the bolt's gonna slide forward, chamber it, and go.
Okay.
Cool. And that's all there is to it.
How much does a transferable M60 set you back?
45,000 will get you one. Anywhere between 40,000 and 70,000. This is about a $40,000 gun.
There it is, the Pig, America's machine gun. One of the longest serving arms in U.S. history. It's just as much a tool as it is a symbol. While the M60 has been largely phased out, it continues to see service with the Navy, the Coast Guard, and even the Navy SEALs. Thanks for watching this very special, very American episode of TFBTV, and happy Thanksgiving.